Hey everybody, this is the promo episode of No Killing Goblins. We're here to introduce ourselves, and the we being myself, Oshi, and Dragoness, my fellow co-host.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and I'm just really excited to finally have something we're going to put up so people can hear our voices.
It's been a journey the last 2 months trying to get this all recorded and figuring out a schedule and doing things. And I thought it would be a good idea to give everybody a chance to at least hear us and hear what our plans are before we do anything else. Because really, we didn't do that. We just went right into it and started recording things, which probably isn't as great a plan as I thought.
It was always kind of our plan to do an intro episode like this, but I think that was the very, very first one we recorded, and we had definitely had some recording kinks to work out. And now I guess we're just going to kind of go back in time with the hindsight of getting a few episodes in and tell you guys a little bit about ourselves and a little bit about the format that we're going for, because it is definitely something that's changing up a bit as we learn.
The more we learn, the more we get better at this and change things. The podcast, No Killing Goblins. I mean, finding the name, by the way, credit to Rat on the Discord for naming us. It was genius.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think they're. Oh God, we didn't get to talk about the name at all enough. I think the name is super important for those who are listening who've read Wandering In. No Killing Goblins is Aaron's mantra. I don't even know what do you want to call it.
I would say that it's sort of her defining ethos, but a bit beyond that, I think that first off, if you haven't read it, the story, this is going to be a medium to heavy spoiler podcast in general. So when I talk about how no killing goblins is Aaron's ethos, uh, I'm going to also talk about how, it's no killing Antinium, no killing anybody. Why do we all have to fight? And then she'll just stone cold kill a motherfucker because they could not tolerate the rules. And the rules were no killing people.
Exactly, and that's the ethos of Erin, the willingness to defend her own philosophy and to defend the people that she cares about. It was maybe it isn't particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Grand an idea, but it's so strong a philosophy and it really connects with people. And I loved the name the second I heard it.
Oh, yeah, and we had spent a couple weeks trying to think up a name, and we went back and forth, and they all sounded so goofy. I think that a couple of the ones we had were some type of a riff off of the Wistrom News Network concept.
We also had the gentleman callers.
Oh, yeah, no, that one was, uh,
Interesting.
I don't have the sense of style, the sense of class, the sense of decorum, or the voice to pull off any gentleman caller.
I mean, you do. Okay, I will say that occasionally you do get all podcast radio voicey, and start going cool when we do promos and stuff. Once we got past the name, figuring out the format was more difficult than I liked because we don't really know how to start talking about. We love talking about it, right? The two of us just enjoy speaking about this stuff.
Our problem isn't knowing how to start talking, it's knowing how to stop. Initially, we had this idea that, hey, what if we set a specific block of the chapters and we'll talk about those, and then we'll go through the book at a good clip, because our goal is to be a retrospective. We want to talk about the story and what it means to us as the story progressed and as it grows. And what we've learned is this is such a deeply complex, fascinating story that it's impossible to say how many, chapters we're going to get going in.
And we can't seem to avoid talking about the thematic significance of things or connecting it to spoilery stuff, and it just keeps going on and on. And the first episode, we did do a good job. We kept it to an hour, and then the second and third was like an hour and 30 minutes and an hour and 40 minutes. It's just the two of us talking.
And that's the point where I think I just said that, especially as we're going to have a guest on. Our first guest with Blue, who we had just had our recording with a minute ago. Excellent episode, great conversations. I think we talked about a lot of things, but we talked about 3 chapters, give or take. And I think that that's ultimately, if you're here for this experience, then that's what this is. We're talking about the story on the whole through the lens of whatever chapter we're talking about as we go along.
Yeah, and we'll cover the chapters, what the events were, what our thoughts were, what we felt. I mean, last chapter I talked about my opinions on Tauren, and Blues and Dragoness looked at me. Oh, well, not looked at me. No, I've got my camera on. They looked at me. They looked at me and said I was basically crazy because I read too much shoujo manga.
Oh no, I've read probably just as much or close to a shoujo manga as you have. All right, I am not gonna let you get away with blaming it on that.
No, it's not just shoujo manga. I've read a ridiculous amount of romance novels and erotic romance. Look, reading is how I get off. So, just, I am at a different level than you guys. You think you've read a lot. You've not come close to me. But we're getting off the topic again. Oh
Well,
no!
no, that we are the topic this time, Oshi. Let's talk about ourselves a little bit. When did you first start reading Wandering In?
Okay, so according to the Patreon stuff, I started the Patreon about 3 years ago. But I know I was reading about a year before that and following along before I joined up for the Patreon. So it's been 4 years. So that, and I hooked up with the Patreon Discord long after I actually signed up for the Patreon. I really, really loved in The Innkeeper right away. Once I got to a certain chapter, I mean, we talk about it in the thing, but for me, I'm 33 years old. I have gotten to a point in my life where finding something that's worthwhile to read is difficult, just because reading is my passion outside of everything else. And if I was somebody in a different life, I probably would have become an editor or worked in the publishing field rather than being the responsible person. And just experiencing this and having the opportunity to interact with the community that's so active and just engage in this medium, in this web serial medium, and not just like novel writing is the epitome of what I've been looking for as a millennial. Like, I started off reading writers' blogs and following along on Twitter and interacting with writers, and then suddenly we come to this medium, this weekly medium that allows me to read large amounts of text of excellently written prose. Well, okay, pirate, forgive me. Usually excellently written prose, um, and just talk about it and talk to people about it. It fills that nerd heart inside of me, and I've been filling that nerd heart inside of me for years now. And I felt like at some point, Pirate started doing streams, and I was always afraid of doing podcasts. I had the idea like a year and a half, 2 years ago, but I couldn't. I just couldn't see myself doing it. And then finally, like 3 or 4 months ago, I sort of softly floated the idea um, to a bunch of people on Patreon, and they were like, "Yeah, it'll be great." And I was like, "I'll do it. I'll do it." And I have pretty severe anxiety issues. Going outside of my house can be difficult sometimes. And it took me 2 months to sort of work through my process to get there. And then I had to find somebody who was willing to talk to me. Oh my
And I
God.
think that's where I came in. And I remember because I'd seen you post a few times about how you were planning a podcast, and we hopped on to just do a chapter discussion on the Discord. And we were talking about it and talking, and I mentioned, that the podcast idea sounded cool when you brought it up. And I think there's a point where we clicked that, like, I was willing to help do the editing, so I qualified. And I guess I also have good ideas sometimes, and like say occasionally smart sounding things.
That's pretty much it. I was terrified of having to do audio editing, but also taking it back a second, the discussion on Discord is what started me going on the idea of getting people. See, I'm used to talking on voice chat a lot. I'm a giant gamer. I played WoW. I played all these games that required you to get on voice speak and just talk to each other. And I learned the social skills, at least there, on how to like interact and spot and talk. And I love books, and I knew all these nerds talking like 300 miles a minute on Discord, typing up storms. They would have opinions. I could not get a single one of them to come on voice. Now I'm hosting those Discord discussions, and there's like 50 people trying to talk at the same time,
Oh
and it's
yeah,
just
and I'm sad that I'm missing those, but unfortunately, I guess I have a regular board game night on Tuesdays, so I can lose at train games because I'm bad at capitalism.
what did you think when I first asked you to do the podcast? What was
I
going
was
through your head?
excited for the idea. I've just thought that it was a really cool idea. And as one of those people who has a lot of opinions, it's a great chance for me to then talk about them on a platform. And I've never not enjoyed a discussion with you, so it just seemed like a good fit.
We talked about me. We talked about my weirdness and my experience with. I've mentioned my age. I've mentioned. Did I mention I'm gay? No, I didn't do that. I'm gay, people. I mentioned why I love the thing. What about you? What got you into the
Well,
Wandering Inn?
this goes way back to a long time forum I've hung out on. And there was a post about people talking about web serials they liked. And at the time, the only real, like, two web serials I had consistently kept up with were stuff written by Wildbow, which I occasionally, drop out of the first quarter of any story he writes and then marathon it when it's done. And then inconsistently-ish updating one called Mother of Learning, and a bunch of web comics on top of that. And somebody mentioned this one web comic about an innkeeper who serves monsters, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like it's probably going to be, cliche anime-y. And then they mentioned that they had written Earthworld fan fiction, the author, and I'm like, oh, well, I read a lot of Earthworld fan fiction. And I couldn't quite, think to myself if I had read anything they'd written, but it was worth checking out, and I fell down the story hole hard. And this was in 2019. And like, if I check the Patreon, I started in 2019 and I marathoned the story in give or take a month. And that was really awkward because I was doing truck driving at the time. So I blew every break. I overslept constantly because I was staying up. I do not want to think about the monetary value of, like, time lost in the shipping industry from this story. And then once I got on the Discord, I've been I've varied on how active I am. I get really active for a week or two and then disappear for a month on and off.
I noticed it's really hard to develop a relationship with the person that you think has good opinions and that you'd get along with when they don't show up for a fucking month.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just put this one out there. This A lot of people love it and have become more involved from the streaming stuff. The streaming stuff definitely led to me feeling less involved with the community, and that's one of the reasons why I like the idea of getting involved with the Patreon, because it means we have a set time, or not the Patreon, the podcast, because we have a set time where we can sit down and you and me can talk, and it's just fun. And it kind of gives me that connection with the community, hopefully, if we can get some more people to come on and talk to us and yell at us on Twitter. We've already gotten one email about how wrong we were about something.
Within minutes, we did a test. Actually, we did our first completed episode, and we did some of the raw audio, and we wanted to test with people. And immediately, and I showed it off to Pan. So, for those who don't know, Patreon has a different tiers, and one of the tiers is literally called Pan Spoilers. So I shared it with Pan Spoilers because it's a relatively small group of people. They're dedicated to TWI and they're interested in fan works and things like this. So I showed it off to them. One of the listeners immediately literally posted actually. I'm not kidding. They said the words actually, and I you know how most people should be annoyed by this? This is how you know I'm a nerd. I squeed.
Have you seen the email? I assume this might be the same person. I'm not in the
Yes.
rarefied tier of Pan, but was it a?
No. I asked them to send the email.
Yeah, yeah. They sent the actually picture and everything, and no, he was right. We got it wrong, and you'll find out what we got wrong about 19 minutes and 30 seconds in. Come back to find out more, because we've gotten plenty of things wrong. I made a giant chess flub, and I have apologized.
We'll be accepting lots and lots of questions and lots of commentary. And if you have ideas about how to improve it, we will. At the end of this, you'll get a tagline with all of our social information, so you can talk to us. But yeah, after that, we just dive right into it. The first month did not go well. I was very mad, and it wasn't even Dragnus. It was all your fault, actually,
It
Dragnus.
was a bit my fault. I had a pretty wild month in my life, but at the same time, like, we were both just learning a lot of how the recording stuff worked, and editing was a bigger hill to tackle than I thought it would be.
I'm actually finding editing sort of zen as an experience. I'm enjoying it. I think I'll enjoy it. I have more time off. I'll get more experience with it and get better with it. I think I might enjoy audio editing.
Yeah, and I also I think the specific thing, and God, I started up a new Ritalin prescription lately, and it's helped. I can't multitask while I'm doing editing. I have to be looking at the audio track and listening to it at the same time, and I can't fidget because I need to be highlighting things. It takes all of my focus, and I'm awful at that.
Wait, you don't
I
pause?
mean, I do pause, but like I still have to be paying attention to where the cursor is, and I'm constantly scrolling forward and back and marking out spots that I think I might have, coughed or vaped or something, or so on and so forth.
I feel like we do things very differently because all I did was let the audio play, and I sort of tuned out both of our voices and looked at the you know how the audio is tracked. What do they call the thing where the blue zones go up and down when voices come out? I don't even know what the yeah. This is how experienced I am with audio, by the way.
That's like the waveform or the spectrogram or something.
So I look at the waveform and I look for like where the waveform differences are, and I see where we overlap or where we're talking over each other, or where there's little bits of noise that don't make sense for a conversation, and then I just go over it and delete that stuff. I don't even listen. The only words I listen for is and when you vape.
Uh,
That was it.
we also both have the bad habit of beginning sentences with, yeah, you'd
Like
think
what the
that we
fuck?
were like 80-year-olds on breathing machines or something. But it's just fun, and it's a new thing, and I'm pretty excited to get it going. And just because you mentioned it, I guess I'll also mention it. I am also queer, so congratulations. We are the gayest Wandering In podcast. We're also the only Wandering In podcast, but
For now, did you see? Like I already said it. There's already been somebody suggesting a competition, a competitive peel. Reddit had a post about it. Watch it happen before we get this. This is why I've been so like pushing for our release so
oh
much.
yeah,
And
no, that lit a fire under me. I realized that we, might be behind the times, and it wasn't going to be my fault.
so we got this. We got this going. We started the recordings, but why I felt like I wanted to do this, part of it is that Pirate's been relatively good to me in terms of like speaking to us and talking to us, and just the story has just been so engaging for me. And I realized that part of my experience as a reader has always been limited by my inability to like talk to other people about it. And the pandemic especially made it clear that there are people who want to talk about this stuff, and there always have been, and I've been the one who's afraid to reach out. It's not their fault, it's not anyone's fault. It's just that I needed to step up, and if I wanted to talk about something with people, I need to reach my hand out and go like, "Hey, I want to talk about it." And there will be people who want to do that, and I needed to not be afraid of it. And I really want this podcast to be something where it brings fans of not just the Wandering In, but fans of just reading and this new medium of it's not really a new medium, but
A
it it is
rediscovered
an
medium, kind of.
uh, yeah,
Uh,
a rediscovered form, but a new medium because it is over the internet. It is over a wholly different platform than it was before.
Yeah, and Wandering In has only a little bit delved into like the realms of hypertext fiction. The Foliana chapter is the only one I can think of. I think that really qualifies, but it is still uniquely an internet story in some ways.
Yeah, and there have been other stories like this, other more realistic ones that have been turned into books and novels and TV series, but there's never been, well, not in the West at least. There is in like Japan and Korea and China and the Southeast Asian sphere, where there is a lot more respect given to writers who start off doing web serials, but there hasn't been one in the West, and I genuinely believe Pirate Abba has a chance to convert this into something more mainstream. And I really want to be
Yeah,
part of that.
and the comic was a huge leap forward that I'm really excited about. And if you had asked me a year ago, like who in the web serial, web fiction universe in like the West was going to cross over first and get a comic or a TV show or something, I would have said Wild Bow and Worm. that
Absolutely.
that was, I think, like the thought. I know that he's talked about how he had deals in place, and one of them for publishing fell through because somebody made an EPUB, which is just the stupidest thing. But this God, was over a decade ago or close to it, back when publishers didn't understand the internet as well, I guess, because that's not a threat at all. But it's neither here nor there. Like Pirate, however, seems to be generating the hype and pushing through, and the comic just has me wild.
It does have, the comic is just like one step though. I'm always wary about any kind of development like that, especially because the media sphere tends to be very fickle. I'd rather I tend to look more at fan engagement and how, wow, I can't believe I'm using those words because I just, fan engagement from people. I'll tell you someday why I get weird whenever I talk like a marketing person. But when you look at fan engagement, when you look at the kind of interactive and like committed fan interaction, that's what people should be looking at, because fans will pay $100 for a cast iron pan so they can keep it because they did
If
it.
I had it, I would have. And you can't get better numbers on fan engagement than a Kickstarter, right? Like,
Exactly.
I really do think that Patreon gets underestimated for this as well, but the speed with which that Kickstarter finished, like, that's the kind of thing that people are going to sit up and look at, and I would not be surprised if Pirates already got more people asking about more comics or spin offs, and one day, God, I hope, a TV show.
I'm not gonna, like, maybe in 30 years, because that's the way mainstream like TV show level work. I would just be happy if Pirate Abba got, exposure on Trash Tastes or something where the weebs started looking at them, because this is
I've
really a
emailed
series
it
that,
to. I follow that a lot. I've sent Ikigik at least 2 emails talking about the story and saying he should read it.
oh well, maybe someday they'll read it, but I just I just think there's so much potential here, and I really want to be a part of it.
And
But
I don't think it would take that long if it was animated. And it definitely should be animated. That's just step one. And God, you look over at Japan, their industry has such a fast turnaround time. If you have something that's doing well, and it will get a manga and it will get animated, and it won't have anywhere near the stuff to work off of that Wandering In has. Wandering In
yeah,
has
but
more words than fucking. God, what's that one awful one? Overlord.
yeah, but here's the problem with that. Pirate even posted about it once. Remember, Pirate posted a couple of a week or two ago about how the first web serial was The Martian. We're not going to go into what you think the first one is. Hang on. The first web serial was one of the responses was literally, they should just go to Japan where they'll immediately get a manga
It's not that easy.
and an anime, and they'll earn like a couple of thousand yen and be able to buy some coffee. Yeah. We want Pirate to have a job and to be able to live off of this, not just like fuck around and get a couple of thousand and then just move on, because that's what it is in the East,
Well,
at least.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, one, I can't imagine a world where it's not a hit, and two, Netflix pays big money. I want like a Netflix adaptation or a Amazon adaptation or something.
Yeah, I mean, I would appreciate that, but I'm still hesitant because it took someone like, you know Critical Role, right? Love 'em or hate 'em, Critical Role was the in the right place at the right time, and they seriously changed how tabletop, like they rode the cusp of the rise of tabletop gaming to the top.
I don't think they wrote it. I think they pushed it, and I think incidentally they saved fifth edition.
Honestly, it just, they wrote that. They're my model for how I think Pirate could grow, because I was, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying that, but I was part of that. I was one of the first people to watch Critical Role because I love Felicia Day and I appreciate the work she does. And I watched their Geek and Sundry channels, and then
Yeah,
I started watching Critical Role, and I loved it. And it's one of those things where I feel like there is this core of people who would love this, but Pirate just needs to be exposed. Not like as a person, and not,
The story
please.
needs exposure, and that's one of the things
Yes.
why, like, I think that step one of that in my mind is this Kickstarter doing so well. And the thing I would love to see happen is a point where you actually have like The Last Tide on comic book shelves, where it's visibly there, reaching out to people who otherwise are not in the sphere where they're going to find out about a web novel.
And I just want to get to that point where, I mean, there's something that Sean and McGuire, another writer and a big Patreon person, talks about a lot, is that digital versions are amazing. They can give you a lot of exposure. But here, the thing that's missing is that if there isn't a physical copy, that poor kid who can't afford, to go to Hot Topic, or couldn't afford, or lived in one bedroom and slept next to their mom and dad like I did when I was really young when we moved to the US, it that kid can't afford the kind of things that Pirate Abba produces. They can't see the things that Pirate Abba produces. I know the internet's cheaper and it's a different medium, but the point still stands that they won't get exposed to it. And I would love to reach a point where Pirate's work reaches out to that kid. That's the kid that should be reading, because those are the kids that will imagine and grow and like draw the most from it. Wasn't that like that for you? Because that's what it was like for
Oh
me.
yeah, although I got it was weird. I was not a book reader until I was about 10 or 11 years old. And there was a point where my mother, who was an avid reader, just got sick and tired of it, unplugged the TV, and threatened to throw it out the window if I didn't have a book read by the end of the afternoon.
Your mother sounds awesome,
She
but
was. She was a pretty magnificent psychopath. No, we don't want to get on the subject of my mother. That's like a whole 2 podcast episodes of just famous people that she dated. Like,
oh, let's
oh
let's
yeah,
not then.
let's not.
So, our personal lives aside, we love you, Pirate Abba. Thank you so much for creating this work, and we hope the those of you who are listening in, who can stomach listening to us for 30 minutes talk about how much we love Pirate, will also listen in to all the episodes where we talk about Volume 1 and Volume 2. We didn't talk about this, but the structure of it is we're going to release these things as seasons, and the first season is going to cover Volume 1. And we're going to try and get to the end of it, and we're going to have retrospective, like, after the season is complete, with maybe 3 or 4 people. We'll see. I'm still trying to get Andrea Parsonaro, who I think that's how you say her name, is the audio reader. What do you call it? The voice actress
Yeah, I've
who
always
does
called
the audiobooks?
the voices.
The voice actress for the audiobooks. I want to see if we can get her here. I want to see if we can get people who do wonderful fan art. We're already getting like moderators from the Discord and prominent people in the Discord community. I would love to reach out to like other web serial writers as well and talk to them about their experiences and compare and contrast to Pirate and see. I have plans. We have
Oh, we
plans.
have
Whether we get through
plans.
them,
And,
yeah, we have
there
plans.
comes a point where we might even get to talking about some other stories. I know you and me both personally talk about Practical Guide to Evil all the time.
Not
And
s- not so much anymore because I've turned the corner on that one.
I've dropped it several times for significant lengths of time, so I understand. You should come back though. It's actually like feeling pretty solid again. But regardless, the other one, Mother of Learning, is a longtime favorite of mine. I'd love just a chance to talk about it. But first and foremost, Wandering In is a story that has meant a lot to me. And I love it, and I thank Pirate every day for just the work that Pirate goes through to make it. It's a beautiful story, and that'll always be like where my heart is and where the heart of our podcast will be as well.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with Wandering In first, assuming we don't age to death in the next 30 years trying to get to the end of the volumes before Pirate finishes. Because it's Pirate. We'll see. There's gonna be. As we go on, we're going to go from multiple chapters an episode to maybe half a chapter an episode at the pace we're going, and the pace Pirate writes. Oh God!
It'll be done when it's done.
It'll be done when it's done. But it just means we get to have more fun and hang out with each other often. So thank you, everybody. Again, the third time I'm thanking everybody for listening along, and we'll see you next time.
Well, we can't thank them enough, and hopefully we'll see our listeners next time.
Before I forget, our first episode launch will be November 24th. This is just on, I think this will be released November 17th. It's just a promo episode just to get everybody situated before we start talking about things. Our social media and our email will be at the end of this. There'll be a pre-recorded message about all that, and I think I'm converting this into a YouTube video. Dotto promised to help me about that. With that, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.
You've been listening to No Killing Goblins. Our thanks goes out to System Glitch for allowing us to use his music for the intro and extra. You can find a link to his SoundCloud in the description. Follow us on Twitter at No Killing Goblin. That's at NOKILLINGGOBLIN. You can email us with questions, comments, corrections, or suggestions at nokillinggoblins@gmail.com. That's NOKILLINGGOBLINS@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, everyone.